I woke up at 2 in the morning to my phone buzzing on the nightstand. My first thought, something happened to my daughter or my brother. You don't get good news at that hour. I reached over, still half asleep, grabbed the phone, and blinked at the screen. It was a text from my wife's number, but it wasn't from her. She's mine now. She's occupied. Don't wait up. Quick note, before we go any deeper, tell us which country you're watching from. My name's Ron. I'm 57. I live in Toledo, Ohio. Been married to Melissa for 11 years. That message came from her boss, Damon Keller. He's a regional VP at the firm she works for. Met him once at a company thing. Too polished, fake smile. And he always looked at Melissa a second too long. Thought I was just being paranoid. Apparently not. I sat up, phone still in my hand. That message, it just sat there on the screen like it was mocking me. I read it again, thinking maybe I missed something. Maybe it meant something else. But no, it said exactly what I thought it said. She's mine now. I stared at it for a good minute before I typed back. Just 7 words. Keep her. We're done. Hit send before I could talk myself out of it. No dramatic speech, no second guessing. Then I just sat there, wide awake, jaw clenched. I could feel my chest pounding like I'd run a mile. A part of me wanted to throw the phone against the wall. Another part, I felt this cold, calm weight settle in my gut. About 20 minutes later, I saw headlights swing across the front of the house. I moved to the window, just enough to peek through the curtain. It was them, Damon and Melissa, pulling into my driveway like they still belonged there. His car, his smug face behind the wheel. Melissa in the passenger seat, looking like she'd just seen a ghost. He stepped out first, smirking, like he'd already won. Like I was supposed to roll over and beg to keep her. Nah, that was the moment I made up my mind. If this guy thought he just took something from me, he had no idea who he was dealing with. I stood there for a second, just watching them walk up the driveway like they weren't trespassing on everything I'd built with Melissa. Damon moved first, of course, strutting like he was in charge. But I could see the hesitation in Melissa, the way she kept her head down as she followed him up the steps. Come inside, I said, keeping my voice low, flat. No yelling, no dramatic gestures, just calm. Like I already knew exactly what was coming next. Damon's face twisted into a smirk as he stepped over the threshold. He was amused, thought this was some kind of game. He probably figured I'd beg him to leave, or apologize, or whatever the hell he thought was gonna happen. Melissa, though, she looked like she regretted even showing up. I could see it in her eyes. She wasn't angry, wasn't defending herself. She just looked defeated. We sat down in the living room, me in the recliner, Damon on the couch, Melissa next to him, her body stiff as she tried to make herself as small as possible. Damon leaned back, clearly feeling in control, his feet up like he owned the place. I didn't give him the satisfaction of looking at him. Instead, I stared straight at Melissa. He opened his mouth like he was about to give some grand explanation. It's complicated, he said, drawing it out like he was trying to sound reasonable, trying to make it sound like there was some good excuse for what he'd done. I didn't let him finish. How many others? I asked her, my voice sharp and low. She blinked, then looked away. Didn't answer. Didn't need to. That hesitation in her eyes, that was everything. I let the silence sit there, thick and heavy, until Damon cleared his throat, shifting uncomfortably. He could feel the weight of it too, but I didn't let him off the hook. Let me guess, I went on, keeping my eyes on her. This isn't the first time, right? Melissa's fingers twisted together in her lap, but she still wouldn't meet my eyes. That was all I needed. I looked at Damon then, watching his smirk fade just a little. I'd been suspicious the past few days, I said, voice steady, but everything in me felt like it was about to crack wide open. So, I did something about it. Damon sat up straighter now. That little shift in his posture, it was enough for me to know that the game had just changed. I hired a private investigator, I said, watching the way his face dropped. Melissa's eyes snapped to me, wide with confusion. Steve Warner, I added, leaning forward just slightly, watching their reactions. Ex-military, private security. Damon opened his mouth like he was going to say something, but I raised my hand to stop him. I wasn't giving him a chance to spin this anymore. You think you're the first? I continued, keeping my voice level, not even a hint of emotion in it. This isn't your first married woman, Damon, but it's gonna be your last. He froze. I could see him trying to piece together how much I knew, how far I'd gone. He looked at Melissa, then back to me, his face pale now. "Don't look at her," I told him. "She's not going to save you." I let them both stew for a second in the silence that filled the room. I'd seen enough to know where this was going, and I wasn't about to back down now. "I've got photos, timelines, statements from other husbands," I said, my eyes cold as I leaned back in my chair. "Corporate expense records. Hell, I've even got receipts for dinners you've taken other women out to, paid for with company credit cards. All of it's with Steve." Damon's face was almost green now, but I couldn't care less. "I don't know what kind of bullshit you've pulled before, but this time, it's not gonna work. You're finished." Melissa looked like she was about to cry, but I wasn't about to show her any sympathy. Not after what she'd done. "You really think I'd just sit back and let you take her?" I asked Damon, leaning forward, voice dropping low. "You picked the wrong guy to mess with." His eyes were wild now, darting between me and Melissa like he didn't know what to do, what to say, but it was too late for him. And Melissa? She was already so far down the rabbit hole that nothing she said was going to fix this. The truth was out there, and there was no taking it back. "Get out," I said to both of them, voice flat. "Don't come back here again." Damon stood up, a little shakily, still trying to hold on to whatever shred of control he thought he had. Melissa stood too, but she didn't look at me, didn't say anything. She just turned and walked out the door with him. The whole time, I just sat there, my hands clenched, breathing slow and steady. I wasn't angry anymore. I was done. After they left, I didn't go back to bed. Couldn't. Not after everything that had gone down. The air in the house felt thick, like it was pressing down on me, but I wasn't ready to breathe easy yet. I walked straight to my desk, where Steve Warner's files were stacked in a neat pile. I hadn't gone through them all at once, just bits here and there, a few pages when I had time to sit with it. But now, I needed to know everything. No more guessing. I needed to see the whole picture. I flipped through the pages, and what I found wasn't just damning. It was a blueprint. Damon had a pattern. He always went for the same kind of woman, married, ambitious, working under him in some capacity. He'd get close, make them feel important, push boundaries just enough to make them feel special but not guilty. It was all about control, all about secrecy. But the more I read, the more I saw the same names popping up. There were other husbands, other wives, and the stories were eerily familiar. One husband had lost everything: job, house, custody of his kids. He'd been blindsided, just like me. His wife had left him for Damon, and when the dust settled, he was the one left picking up the pieces. Another guy had been working 2 jobs to support his family when his wife decided Damon was a better choice. She'd filed for divorce. Damon had never paid a price. Settlements, quiet resignations, NDAs. I could see the paper trail now, clear as day, a path of destruction he'd left behind, but always covered up, swept under the rug. No one had fought back. They'd all disappeared quietly, and Damon had moved on to the next target. But I wasn't going to disappear. Not quietly, anyway. I grabbed the thickest file, the one that had all the juicy details Steve had gathered. Photos, timelines, statements from the 2 husbands who were brave enough to talk, corporate expense records showing dinners and trips paid for by the company. Damon was using the firm's resources like his own personal piggy bank. The more I looked at it, the angrier I got. This wasn't just about Melissa. This was about a man who thought he could take anything he wanted, ruin anyone he wanted, and never face a single consequence. No more. I took a deep breath, exhaled slow, and started compiling a report. I organized everything. Photos, statements, records, everything that could sink Damon if the right people saw it. It wasn't just revenge anymore. This was about making sure he couldn't do it again. Once the report was ready, I didn't hesitate. I sent it off to HR, to the company's legal team, and directly to the board of directors. Damon needed to know that he couldn't hide behind his position anymore. He had a pattern, and I was putting it on display. The whole world was going to see it. If I had to burn him down, so be it. There was no turning back now. The wheels were in motion, and I wasn't about to stop them. He thought he could just take something that wasn't his. Well, he picked the wrong guy. And now, the whole company was going to see who Damon Keller really was. 2 days later, I woke up to the headline: Damon Keller on administrative leave. It was all over the newsfeed, and I could practically hear the corporate lawyers patting themselves on the back. They'd probably been planning it for days, waiting for a reason to pull him in without rocking the boat too much. But I knew what it really meant. Damon was sinking, fast. I didn't have to wait long for the next bomb to drop. Melissa came home from work looking like she hadn't slept a minute. Her face was pale, her eyes wide. She was wound up tight, but there was no hiding the panic in her voice when she spoke. "You did this, didn't you?" she asked, accusing me like I'd set the whole damn thing in motion. "You ruined everything. You couldn't just let it go, could you?" I didn't flinch. "I didn't send that text," I told her, keeping my voice steady. "Damon did." She just stared at me, shaking her head, like I was the one who'd betrayed her. "I was manipulated, Ron. He used me. I swear I didn't mean for any of this to happen. It was just a mistake. I was confused." I cut her off before she could go any further. Don't try to explain it away." I stood up, rubbing my hand over my face. "I've been living with this for weeks. Don't think you can come in here and tell me it was just a mistake." Her eyes filled with tears, but I didn't want to see them. I didn't care. "I need you to leave, Melissa." She froze, confusion flickering on her face. "What? What do you mean?" "You can stay in the guest room," I said, voice flat, "but only until Friday. After that, I want you gone." Her mouth opened and closed a few times, like she was searching for something to say that would change my mind. "Ron, please, we can work this out. I'll make things right, I swear. I never meant for it to go this far." I shook my head. "It's too late for that." She stood there for a long moment, fighting back tears. But I wasn't going to be the one to comfort her. Not anymore. "I'm sorry, but this is the way it has to be." She didn't argue after that. She just went upstairs, and I heard the door to the guest room close softly behind her. That night, after I'd gone through the motions of dinner, eating alone, cleaning up alone, my phone buzzed. It was Steve. "2 more women came forward," he said, his voice low, like he was giving me a secret. "One's been fighting HR for months, complaints ignored. They're not just looking at Damon anymore, Ron. They're opening a full investigation. Legal's in it now, and the board's gonna be involved. It's blowing up." I leaned back in my chair, letting his words sink in. Damon's reputation was shot. His career was imploding, and it wasn't just because of me. It was the web of lies and manipulation he'd spun for years. The women he'd preyed on. The power he'd abused. It was all coming apart at the seams. And for the first time in years, I felt like I was finally seeing some justice. "Good," I said, my voice rough but satisfied. "Let it burn. He deserves it." Steve didn't try to sugarcoat it. "You did the right thing, Ron. This is bigger than you thought. The company's gonna have to answer for a lot of this." I didn't know what to say to that, so I didn't say anything. I just sat there, phone in my hand, staring at the kitchen table. My life was falling apart, but Damon's was crashing down even harder. The whole company was going to know who he really was, and there was no way he was going to worm his way out of it this time. After Steve hung up, I felt a little lighter. I didn't have any answers for where I was going next, or what was going to happen with Melissa, but for the first time in days, I didn't feel like I was the one losing. Damon had picked the wrong guy to mess with, and now he was going to see that. The next morning, I woke up to an email from Damon. His name was right there in the subject line. "Ron, this needs to stop." The words were like a slap across the face, all self-righteous and angry. "You're destroying a man's career over a personal issue. This isn't just about you and me anymore, Ron. You're making it personal, and it's going to ruin you too." I read it once, twice. The arrogance in that email was infuriating, like he thought he could still intimidate me with his position. I didn't respond. I didn't need to. Instead, I forwarded it to legal, making sure they knew he was contacting me directly during an ongoing investigation. Let them deal with it. Then, about an hour later, my phone rang. It was Melissa. "Ron, I need you to stop," she begged, her voice shaking. "Damon's telling me you're crazy, that you're just jealous, that this is all your fault." I didn't answer right away. Instead, I pulled up the photos Steve had sent me, the ones that showed Damon with another married woman. There was one from a trip to Atlanta last year. Damon at a fancy dinner with a woman I didn't recognize. The two of them were practically glued to each other, and it was clear this wasn't just a work meeting. I showed the photos to Melissa without saying a word. She took them in, her eyes flicking back and forth, face paling with each one. "You weren't the first," I said, finally breaking the silence. "You weren't even close." She looked like she was going to collapse. Her hands trembled as she held the pictures, her breath coming in ragged gasps. "I didn't know. I swear I didn't know." I stared at her. "Does it matter?" She didn't respond. She couldn't. There was nothing she could say that would fix it now. Nothing that would change what had already been done. Her face crumpled, and for the first time, I saw the full weight of it hit her. The guilt, the realization that she had been just another woman in a long line of them. But I wasn't about to comfort her. Later that day, HR called. They asked if I could give a recorded statement about what I'd seen, what I knew. They said the board was looking into past complaints, especially now that more people had come forward. I agreed, but it wasn't out of some desire to be a hero. It was because Damon had crossed a line that couldn't be ignored anymore. He thought he could get away with it. He thought he was untouchable, but I was making damn sure he wasn't. The legal team said they'd send someone over to take the statement, and that was it. That was when it all felt real. The quiet collapse of the man who thought he was invincible, all because of his own greed and arrogance. I wasn't doing this for revenge. I was doing it to make sure he didn't ruin anyone else. The phone rang the next morning, the number on the screen immediately telling me who it was. Layla. I'd known this was coming, but it didn't make it any easier. My daughter was always the level-headed one, the one who had her shit together. So, when she spoke, her voice shaking with tears, I almost couldn't believe it. Dad, I saw something online about Damon. Is it true? Is all of it really happening? The question hung in the air between us, the weight of it almost suffocating. I took a breath and didn't hesitate. I couldn't afford to lie to her. Not about this. Yeah, Layla, it's all true, I said, as gently as I could manage. Your mother, she made a mistake. A big one. Damon's been manipulating her, and I paused, trying to find the right words. I'm done with it. I'm done with her. There was silence on the other end of the line, long and thick. Then Layla spoke, her voice quieter now, like the air had been knocked out of her. I don't know what to think, Dad. I don't know what to believe. The words hit me like a punch. Layla. I just need time. She cut in quickly, her voice cracking. I don't want to take sides. I can't just choose between you and Mom like that. I swallowed hard. The sting of it settled in my chest, thick and bitter. You don't have to choose, but you can't just pretend like nothing happened. I know, but this is so hard, Dad. Her words came out in a rush, like she was trying to explain something I couldn't understand. She's always been my hero, and now, I just don't know. I don't know what to believe anymore. I felt a lump form in my throat, but I wasn't going to let myself break down. Not over this. Layla, your mother made her choices. I can't undo that. You need to figure out what you believe, but don't do it for me, and don't do it for her. Do it for yourself. I will, she whispered, but I could tell she wasn't sure. The call ended quietly. I sat there for a while afterward, just holding the phone in my hand. A part of me wanted to reach out and beg her to understand, but I knew I couldn't. She had to find her own way through this. A few hours later, my brother Dennis called, and right away, I could tell where the conversation was going. Ron, I know this is tough, he said, his voice soft but firm. But you can't just cut Melissa off like that. She made one mistake. You've got 11 years together. Don't throw it all away over one thing. I wanted to scream at him. One mistake? I said instead, trying to keep it together. Do you really think that's what this is? Do you think I can just forget the way she handed everything? My dignity, my trust, over to another man at 2 a.m.? Dennis was quiet on the other end. I could almost hear him shifting, trying to find the right thing to say. I get it, Ron, he finally replied. But she's your wife. Don't you think you owe it to her to try and fix it? I shook my head, though I knew he couldn't hear it. No, Dennis, I don't owe her anything anymore. Not after this. He didn't say anything back, but I could feel the weight of his silence. After a beat, he just sighed. I don't know, man. I don't know what I'd do. I didn't need him to know what I was feeling. I just needed him to understand that I wasn't going to let this slide. Not for anyone. Neither do I muttered. But I'm doing what I have to do. He didn't argue, and I didn't want him to. A few days after Damon was put on administrative leave, the company finally issued their official statement. HR released a memo announcing that Damon Keller had resigned for personal reasons. No details, just that clean, corporate-speak way of sweeping things under the rug. They were trying to keep it quiet, make it sound like a voluntary decision. But I knew better, and so did everyone else. A week later, the local business blog ran a story. The headline was all I needed to see. VP's pattern of power, inside a resignation. It went into everything. The whispers, the behind-the-scenes complaints, how things had been escalating for months. They quoted anonymous insiders, talked about multiple informal complaints filed with HR that were ignored, They mentioned corporate negligence and abusive behavior, all of it wrapped up in neat, clean language. It wasn't just about Damon anymore. It was about the whole culture of his company, and it was starting to unravel. That afternoon, my phone rang. I saw the number and knew exactly what it was, a reporter. I almost didn't answer, but I did anyway. I wasn't about to let anyone spin this any other way. "Mr. Roberts," the reporter's voice was smooth, practiced. "We're looking into the resignation of Damon Keller. We're aware that you've been involved in this. Can you confirm the details of the situation?" I took a breath. "I'm not going to give you names," I said, "but I'll tell you this. Damon Keller has been using his position to manipulate married women at his company for years. He's gotten away with it because no one wanted to speak up. I spoke up. The rest is for the legal team to figure out." The reporter pressed for more specifics, but I didn't give them. I knew what they wanted. They wanted drama. They wanted the juicy details. But I wasn't about to make this personal. I wasn't going to give them a spectacle. "I'm only speaking in facts," I said, my voice steady. "He's done, and his actions have consequences. That's all I'm saying." A few minutes later, the call ended. I didn't feel good about it. Didn't feel bad either. It was just done. Another piece of the puzzle set into place. The next week, Melissa moved into a rental house across town. It wasn't far, but it felt like a world away. She hadn't fought me on it, not after everything that had happened. We spoke only through lawyers now, everything in writing. The conversations felt hollow, like she was still trying to hold on to something that wasn't there anymore. But it wasn't my job to fix it. Steve called me a few days after that. He sounded like he was trying to keep things light, but I could hear the satisfaction in his voice. "Damon's name showing up on do not hire lists in industry circles," he said, like it was just another update. "The word's out. He's officially radioactive." I didn't respond right away. I didn't need to. Damon had been good at playing the game, but now the game was over, and he was the one stuck with the consequences. Steve went on, giving me some details on how the investigation was progressing. They were digging deeper, interviewing more people, and some of the things coming to light were even worse than we'd thought. But none of that mattered to me anymore. Damon had gotten everything he deserved, and I didn't need to see him go down any further to feel like I had won. The truth had come out, and it was enough. I didn't care that Damon was done, or that his career was in ruins. I cared that I'd taken back my dignity, that I'd stopped letting people like him get away with things just because they were in power. Everything he'd done, all the harm he'd caused, it was finally catching up to him. I finalized the divorce on a Wednesday, signed the papers in silence, no fanfare, just the sound of a pen scratching paper. No tears, no dramatic speeches, just me and the paperwork and a cheap cup of coffee. It wasn't how I'd imagined it, but I didn't need it to be anything else. The whole process had been long enough. When I walked out of the courthouse, I didn't feel relieved, didn't feel like I'd won. Hell, I didn't feel anything. Not happy, not sad, just done. The truck was mine. The tools were mine. My father's old watch was mine. I'd earned those things. Melissa got her car and the furniture she'd picked out. That's how it went. The lawyer said it was fair. I didn't care. We weren't fighting over things anymore. We were fighting over something bigger, something that wasn't going to fit in a living room or a garage. That night, I sat on my porch with a beer and watched the sunset for the first time in what felt like years. The quiet stretched out in front of me, and for once, it didn't feel like a weight. It just felt still. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I took it out, expecting another message from the lawyer or some HR update, but it wasn't that. It was Layla. The text was short, simple. I read the article. "I'm sorry. I love you." I stared at it for a long time. That little message meant more to me than she'd ever know. She didn't pick sides. She just acknowledged the truth. And that, right there, was everything. Damon, I don't know where he went. He'd disappeared, like I knew he would. But I knew what followed him. A file with names, faces, and patterns. That trail of destruction he left behind, it wasn't going away. He thought a 2 a.m. text would end me. It didn't. It freed me. I didn't throw glasses. I didn't cry. I didn't need to. I exposed a predator. I ended a lie. I took back my dignity. Sometimes justice doesn't come from a courtroom. Sometimes it comes from a guy who won't shut up and won't back down. Damon wanted to keep her? Nah. I gave her back, with interest.